The year is 2293. Humanity has risen from the ashes of its fractured past to become a powerful, unified force in the galaxy. The Earth Federation, once divided by politics and war, now stands as a beacon of peace and prosperity. Its reach spans countless star systems, its influence extending far beyond the borders of the homeworld, Terra Prime. The Federation's capital city, a sprawling, futuristic metropolis, stands as a testament to the incredible advancements of human civilization skyscrapers that stretch into the clouds, bustling spaceports that connect worlds, and a thriving culture that values knowledge, progress, and exploration. It is a society at the peak of its power, its people confident in their future, and the promise of limitless possibility. At the heart of this galaxy-spanning empire stands Captain Lyra Karn, a decorated fleet commander and the leader of the Federation's elite military force, the Celestial Armada. Known for her sharp tactical mind and unwavering loyalty to the Federation, Lyra has earned the respect of her peers and subordinates alike. She is no stranger to conflict, having led her forces through numerous skirmishes and diplomatic crises. Though she has never faced an enemy quite like this, there have been no wars for decades. The galaxy is calm, almost eerily so, and Lyra feels the weight of that peace pressing down on her, like an uneasy silence before a storm. The Celestial Armada is the Federation's ultimate weapon, a fleet of warships and elite soldiers trained for any threat, though such threats seem increasingly rare. Humanity's technological advancements have ensured that the Federation's military power is unmatched, and in recent years, the Celestial Armada has been kept on standby, a reminder of humanity's potential for destruction. Lyra finds herself growing restless in the absence of conflict, questioning the true purpose of her forces. What good is military power if there are no wars to fight? What does a soldier do when there is no battle? One day, while stationed in the Federation's military command center on Terra Prime, Lyra receives an unexpected message. It is a distress signal, a cry for help from a remote sector of the galaxy, the far edge of the Andromeda system. At first, the message seems like little more than a routine transmission, perhaps a technical anomaly or a distress call from a stranded vessel. But when Lyra and her team begin analyzing the signal, they realize something far more troubling. The message is not only urgent, but also ancient. The signal, distorted by time and space, carries an unsettling message. A force approaches. Send your ultimate fleet. All is lost. The words echo with a sense of finality that sends a chill down Lyra's spine. It's a plea for help, but one that seems to carry the weight of something far greater than a simple distress call. The Federation, confident in its ability to respond to any crisis, initially dismisses the message as a hoax or an outdated anomaly. After all, the galaxy has been peaceful for centuries, and humanity has not encountered a serious threat in generations. But Lyra cannot shake the feeling that something is wrong. She delves deeper into the message's origins, uncovering details that raise more questions than answers. The transmission is far older than any human technology. It originates from a time long before the Federation even existed. The coordinates in the message point to a distant planet called Xeros, located in a region of space that humanity had never explored, a place shrouded in mystery and forgotten by time. Xeros was once thought to be an uninhabited world, its history lost to the ages. But the distress signal suggests otherwise. Someone or something on Xeros is calling for help, and whoever sent the message knows that humanity's greatest military asset, the Celestial Armada, is the only force capable of answering that call. But why? What could be so dangerous that it would require the might of Earth's most powerful fleet? The Federation Council is thrown into disarray. Some members argue that the message is nothing more than an anomaly, perhaps a relic from the past, while others fear that it may be a trap, a ruse designed to lure humanity into a conflict it cannot win. However, Lyra's instincts tell her that this is no ordinary transmission, and she insists that the Celestial Armada be dispatched to investigate. She is convinced that there is something important about Xeros, something that humanity cannot ignore. As the fleet begins preparations for the mission, Lyra's mind races with questions. What could this unknown force be? How could something so ancient send a message across the stars, through time itself? And who or what would need humanity's help so desperately? There is no time to waste. Lyra gathers her most trusted officers, each of them handpicked for their skills and expertise. The mission is perilous, the stakes high, and the unknowns even higher. She knows that the Celestial Armada is humanity's greatest strength, but she also knows that a great danger looms on the horizon, a danger that could challenge everything humanity has come to believe about its place in the galaxy. As Lyra and her team board the flagship Aetheris, the Celestial Armada sets course for Xeros, crossing the vast emptiness of space. The stars stretch out before them, infinite and unknowable. Lyra looks out at the darkness, her mind still reeling from the questions that plague her. What could await them on Xeros? Whatever it is, she knows one thing for certain: humanity's peaceful reign in the galaxy is about to be tested in ways it never has before. The journey to Xeros is not just a mission of investigation, it is the beginning of a new chapter in humanity's story. The answers they seek may change everything they thought they knew about the galaxy, their place in it, and the true nature of the threats that lurk beyond the stars. The storm is coming, and this time, humanity's ultimate fleet will not be standing idle. The Celestial Armada neared Xeros, the once forgotten world, now the center of an alarming mystery. The vastness of space stretched before them, cold and infinite, but something was different about this sector. The fleet's advanced sensors detected an anomaly, a powerful presence lurking just beyond the visible horizon. It wasn't just a simple disturbance. It felt like the very fabric of space itself had been altered. As the fleet moved closer, they could see the planet itself, cloaked in a dense energy field, shimmering with an otherworldly glow. Xeros seemed to defy the laws of physics, no clear visual of the surface, no data returning from standard scans. It was as if the planet was hiding something, intentionally preventing any clear observation. It was unlike anything humanity had encountered, even with their most sophisticated technology. Captain Lyra Karn stood on the bridge of the Aetheris, gazing out at the distortion in the distance. The Federation had expected something unusual, but this was far beyond their expectations. She ordered the fleet into a defensive formation. There was no telling what might be waiting on the surface of Xeros, and her primary objective was still to uncover the truth behind the mysterious distress signal. Lyra's team, a hand-picked group of elite officers and scientists, descended to the surface. They were armed with the Federation's most advanced tools, energy shields that could withstand direct blasts, gravity warping boots designed to navigate the planet's unknown terrain, and precision scanners capable of mapping even the most intricate details. They were prepared for anything, or so they thought. Upon landing, they were met with an eerie silence. The landscape was stark and barren, yet strangely beautiful ancient structures towering like forgotten titans, crumbling under the weight of centuries. Massive spires reached toward the sky, their surfaces covered in intricate symbols that none of the team recognized. Strange, glowing artifacts littered the ground, pulsating with a faint humming energy. Everything seemed frozen in time, a ghostly reminder of a once great civilization. Lyra moved forward cautiously, the team following in formation, scanning the area with their equipment. The ruins told a tale of a race that had once been magnificent. The Zinthor, as Lyra would soon learn, had been a people whose technology surpassed even the Federation's greatest achievements. Their mastery over energy, gravity, and even time itself was nothing short of miraculous. But now, they were gone, vanished from the galaxy, their existence only remembered through these ruins and their relics. As the team ventured deeper into the heart of Xeros, Lyra uncovered something unexpected: ancient data archives hidden beneath the surface. They had been left behind by the Zinthor, preserved in the most advanced technology Lyra had ever seen. It was a discovery that could revolutionize the Federation's understanding of the universe. But the deeper they dug, the more unsettling the truth became. The Zinthor were not wiped out by some natural catastrophe or internal collapse, as humanity had assumed. They were hunted. An ancient entity, one whose power transcended anything the Federation had ever encountered, had nearly destroyed them. The being was known as the Infernus, a name that seemed to burn itself into Lyra's mind as she read through the data. The Infernus was not just an enemy, it was a force of nature, a godlike entity capable of warping time and space to its will. It had ravaged entire star systems, wiping out civilizations with a mere thought, and the Zinthor had barely escaped its wrath. The distress signal had not been a simple call for help, it was a warning. A desperate cry to humanity, begging them to heed the ancient threat that was now stirring once again. The Infernus was coming, and it was more terrifying than anything humanity had ever faced. Lyra's thoughts raced. How could humanity stand against such a being? Even the Celestial Armada, the most powerful fleet ever assembled, might not be enough to stop it. And then the implications hit her. The Infernus was not just a threat to the Zinthor, it was coming for Earth. The Federation, the shining pinnacle of humanity's achievements, was in its sights. Lyra's heart sank. The peace humanity had fought so hard to preserve was crumbling. The very existence of humanity could be wiped out in the blink of an eye. There would be no negotiation, no diplomacy to stop the Infernus. It was a destroyer, not a conqueror. As Lyra and her team continued their investigation, the cracks in their understanding of the universe deepened. They had assumed that humanity's superiority in technology and military power meant that they could overcome any challenge. But this threat was unlike anything they had ever encountered. It was beyond their control, beyond their comprehension. The return to the Celestial Armada was met with immediate debate. Lyra convened with the Federation Council, urgently presenting the data they had recovered. The threat of the Infernus was now clear, but what should humanity do? Some factions within the Council insisted on preparing for an immediate offensive. There was a growing desire among certain military leaders to strike first, to ensure that humanity's dominance would not be threatened by this alien entity. However, there were others who questioned the Federation's role in this new war. The Infernus was a being beyond comprehension, a force of pure destruction. Could humanity truly hope to face it head-on, or should they consider other options? There were whispers of negotiating with the Infernus, of offering humanity's services as allies, aligning with such an ancient and powerful entity for their own survival. To some, it was an enticing proposition. They could bow to the Infernus, seeking power in return for their lives. Lyra found herself caught in the middle of a political storm. On one hand, her loyalty to the Federation, to humanity's ideals of peace and progress, urged her to protect her people at all costs. On the other hand, the revelation of the Infernus had shattered everything she thought she knew about the galaxy. Humanity's place at the top of the food chain was no longer guaranteed. And now, internal divisions within the Federation were threatening to tear it apart from the inside. The true battle was no longer just about the Infernus, it was about navigating the treacherous political landscape of the Federation. Lyra's heart ached as she realized the gravity of the situation. Would humanity fight to defend their moral high ground, or would they forsake their ideals in the face of annihilation? Could they risk becoming what they once fought against, an empire built on the principles of destruction? In the days that followed, the political intrigue within the Federation grew more intense. Allies became adversaries, and long-standing relationships turned to dust as differing ideologies took root. Lyra knew that the Federation would never be the same. The stakes were higher than ever, and the future of humanity, its very soul, hung in the balance. As the Celestial Armada prepared for the inevitable confrontation with the Infernus, Lyra found herself questioning everything she had believed in. The fight against an alien force was no longer the only war humanity would face. The true battle for Earth's future would be one fought within the hearts and minds of its people. The Aetheris rocked violently as another pulse of destructive energy crashed against its reinforced hull. The blinding flashes of the blast washed over the ship's bridge, flickering like dying stars. Lyra Kern gripped the armrests of her chair, her knuckles white as the hull groaned under the assault. It felt like the very fabric of space was being torn apart around them. The Infernus had arrived. The fleet, which had once been the most formidable military force in the galaxy, was now a shattered shell of its former self. Every weapon humanity had painstakingly developed seemed utterly useless against the incomprehensible power of the Infernus. Its tendrils of energy lashed out, ripping apart warships with barely a second thought. Even the Celestial Armada, humanity's greatest military achievement, was no match for the eldritch forces of the Infernus. Lyra watched as her comrades' ships were disintegrated in moments. The lights on the Aetherus flickered and alarms blared, but the reality of their situation was undeniable. This wasn't a war. It was an execution. "Captain, we've lost the port shields. Hull integrity is at 32%. Her chief engineer called out, his voice tinged with panic. Lyra's mind raced as the scope of the devastation became all too clear. She knew the Infernus was powerful, but this was beyond anything she could have ever prepared for. Her hands hovered over the controls, but every decision felt meaningless in the face of this destruction. They were mere insects, fighting a storm they couldn't even comprehend. And then, amidst the chaos, came the revelation that would change everything. A transmission crackled through the comms, distorted, faint but unmistakable. Lyra's heart skipped a beat as she recognized the voice. It was Erythra, the last of the Zinthor. He had been among the few surviving members of the ancient race, the ones who had created the weapon now destroying everything. "Captain Kern," Erythra's voice was hoarse, strained. "You have to understand. The Infernus. It was not an invader. It was our creation." Lyra froze, her breath catching in her throat. It made no sense. The Zinthor had created the Infernus. The galaxy had always believed that the Infernus had arrived from another dimension, an alien entity bent on destruction. But now, the truth began to unravel in front of her. The Infernus had once been a weapon, a guardian crafted by the Zinthor to protect their world, their civilization, from threats they couldn't even imagine. But the Infernus had turned on its creators. Its power, unfathomable and uncontrollable, had corrupted it. The Zinthor, in their thirst for knowledge, had unleashed a terror beyond their reckoning. Lyra stared at the flickering image of Erythra. His expression was hollow, guilt radiating from him as he recounted the tragic history of the Zinthor's last days. "We tried to contain it. We thought we could control it, but the Infernus was beyond us. It devoured our planet, our people. And now it's coming for you. For Earth." The weight of his words hung in the air like a suffocating cloud. The Infernus wasn't just some random invader. It was the byproduct of Zinthor ambition, an ancient creation turned against them. Humanity had been caught in the wake of this catastrophic error. Lyra's mind reeled. She had spent her entire career defending Earth and its allies, but this revelation changed everything. The Infernus was not a mindless enemy. It was a manifestation of failure, a creature born of fear and hubris. Humanity had not just stumbled into war, they had inherited a curse, one tied to the darkest mistakes of another civilization. The battle around them intensified, and Lyra's thoughts turned to the impossible task at hand. The Aetherus was falling apart. Its crew was struggling to maintain any kind of defense against the relentless assault of the Infernus's minions. There was no way to win through conventional means. Humanity's greatest weapon was its intellect, its ability to adapt, but the Infernus was not a problem that could be solved with new tactics or weapons. Then Erythra offered an unsettling solution. "There is one way," he said, his voice steady despite the horror in his eyes. We have an artifact, a weapon, a way to trap the Infernus, to imprison it in a dimensional rift. It can be sealed away for eternity." Lyra's heart skipped. "And how do we use this weapon?" "The artifact is located in the Zinthor archives, deep within the core of their ancient citadel. It is powered by an ancient energy source, something we can no longer control. Only those who bear the legacy of the Zinthor can activate it. And there is a price. The activation will cost those who use it their lives. There is no escaping it." Lyra was silent for a moment, processing the enormity of the decision. She had always been prepared to die in the line of duty, but to sacrifice herself for an entire species was something else entirely. Was it worth the cost? Was humanity worth saving, even at the expense of everything they had built? Lyra looked out at the destruction around her, the fleet falling apart as she watched. She had always believed that humanity was destined for greatness. But now, as the destruction of Earth loomed, she wondered if that greatness was a lie. Could they ever truly overcome their own hubris? The answer was staring her in the face, and it was a difficult one to swallow. She knew what she had to do. "Set course for the Zinthor Citadel," she said, her voice firm despite the uncertainty gnawing at her. "Prepare the fleet for a final push. If we can't stop the Infernus now, humanity's future will be nothing but ashes." The decision weighed heavily on her as she gave the order to launch the final mission. It was not just a mission of survival, it was a mission to undo the mistakes of the past, to atone for the sins of those who had unleashed the Infernus upon the galaxy. Lyra was no longer fighting for victory. She was fighting for redemption, for a chance to free humanity from the shadow of its own legacy. But in her heart, she knew the cost of that redemption. To stop the Infernus, to save Earth, she and her crew would have to make the ultimate sacrifice. The war was no longer just about survival. It was about what humanity was willing to give up to secure its future. The weight of that choice was now on Lyra's shoulders, and the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The battle had reached its climax. The Aetheris, once a symbol of humanity's power, was nothing more than a husk of metal and fire. The fleet, which had once been the pride of the Federation, was decimated. The Infernus, an unstoppable force of destruction, had ravaged their ranks, leaving only a few scattered survivors. The war, the one Lyra had fought so desperately to win, was no longer about survival, it was about redemption. Lyra stood before the Zinthor artifact, the ancient weapon capable of sealing the Infernus away, perhaps forever. Its surface hummed with a strange, resonating energy, almost as though it were alive. She could feel it drawing her in, as if it had been waiting for this moment. This was the moment she would end it, once and for all. But it was also the moment she would end herself. "Captain, are you sure about this?" Ares' voice echoed from the comms, his tone heavy with fear. The Zinthor's remaining survivors, what little hope they had left, rested upon her shoulders. "The artifact will take everything from you. There is no coming back from this." Lyra's gaze shifted to the stars outside the observation window. She could feel her own pulse, steady but heavy in her chest, mirroring the tension in the air. She thought of her crew, her people, humanity, their future. The decision was not hers alone. The cost of victory had already been written in the stars, and this final sacrifice was the price. "I know," she said, her voice low but resolute, "but this is the only way. We either stop it now, or it all ends." She stepped forward, the weight of her decision pressing down on her, but she didn't hesitate. With a final, slow breath, Lyra placed her hand on the artifact's core, the surface pulsing under her touch. For a moment, the world around her seemed to still. A sudden, deafening silence filled the bridge of the Aetheris. Then, a surge of energy cascaded through her body, overwhelming her senses. Pain and power intertwined in a visceral sensation she could barely comprehend. The artifact's energy surged through her veins, filling every fiber of her being. Her mind began to crack, the edges of her consciousness splintering as she felt the boundaries between herself and the Infernus begin to blur. She could feel it, the creature that had destroyed everything, the godlike terror that had been unleashed upon the galaxy. The Infernus was both alien and familiar to her now, its essence intertwined with her own. With a final, heart-wrenching scream, Lyra activated the artifact, a surge of energy bursting outward. The ship shook violently, as if the very fabric of reality itself was being torn apart. The space around her seemed to fracture, the dimensional rift opening wide, swallowing the Infernus in its depths. The monstrous entity, in all its eldritch horror, screamed in defiance as it was dragged into the rift, its power dimming, its form scattering across the void. The rift closed with a final, echoing silence. And then there was nothing. Lyra's vision blurred as the world around her faded. The sensation of power ebbed away, leaving only a profound emptiness. She could feel her body growing weaker, the life force slipping away with every passing second. The artifact's energy had done what it was meant to do, but it had also taken what was most precious, her life. In the final moments before her consciousness slipped away, Lyra's mind drifted. She thought of Earth, of her home, of her crew, those she had fought for, and those she had lost. She had given everything to save them, but what would they do with their survival? The Infernus was gone, but the questions it left behind were far from resolved. Humanity had survived, but at what cost? The price of their victory had been too steep for one individual, for one life. The Federation awoke from the horrors of war in a fragile silence. The Infernus was no more, its rampage stopped by the ultimate sacrifice of one of humanity's greatest warriors. But that victory was bittersweet. The Celestial Armada, once an unstoppable force, had been shattered, its ships reduced to debris, its crew decimated. And though the Federation was victorious, the road ahead was uncertain. Lyra's sacrifice had saved them all, but it had also broken something fundamental. The Federation Council was in disarray. Without their greatest fleet, humanity's future was now in question. The once unshakable unity among the galaxy's powers was beginning to crumble. The political landscape, once unified under the banner of the Federation, had fractured. Some factions began to question whether humanity should even lead the galaxy anymore. Others, emboldened by their survival, spoke of expanding Earth's dominion, taking advantage of the chaos left in the wake of the war. But there was no ignoring the reality of the situation. The moral questions Lyra's sacrifice had raised couldn't be easily answered. Could humanity truly overcome its past, its violent, expansionist history? The Infernus had been a product of the Zinthor's failure, yes, but the truth was, humanity had its own blood-stained history. The Federation had once been a collection of states, waging war and manipulating species to conquer the stars. Now, humanity found itself at a crossroads. Should they rebuild the empire that once stretched across the galaxy, or should they forge a new path, one that embraced peace, humility, and the lessons of the past? Erythra, the last surviving Zinthor, left humanity with one final message: survival is not enough. To truly lead the galaxy, humanity must learn from its past and atone for the sins of those who came before. Lyra's name would forever be etched into the history books, not just as a war hero, but as the person who had made the ultimate sacrifice. But her legacy would not be one of simple victory. It would be a reminder of the cost of power, the consequences of ambition, and the responsibility that came with being the dominant species in the galaxy. The Federation, though victorious, stood on the precipice. The war was over, but the true conflict was just beginning. Humanity's future had been secured, but the moral and philosophical questions that lingered would continue to haunt them. Could they truly overcome the dark legacy of their past? Or would they continue down the same path that had brought them to the brink of destruction? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain: Lyra Karn's sacrifice would never be forgotten, and the future of humanity would forever be shaped by the lessons learned in the wake of her final, selfless act.